Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to measure your cornerstone, how to figure what size of strips you need to cut from each border fabric, how to cut strips, how to attach the strips from end to end to make one continuous strip, how to determine the length of the strip needed for the top and bottom of the quilt, and how to place the cornerstones on the strip set. Start by measuring the cornerstones. Since these squares can sometimes be made with bonus squares and triangles, you want to measure to make sure you know exactly how wide to cut the strips to make your borders. Now that we know exactly how wide our cornerstone is, let's figure out how wide to make those strips. Our cornerstone measured 6.5 inches. I want a 2 1/4 inch and a 4 1/4 inch strip to be joined together. I need to add a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to each one, so that means I need a 2 1/2 inch and a 4 1/2 inch strip. One of the most important things to remember when cutting fabric into strip sets is to make sure that you line up your selvage edges. The selvage edge is the unfinished part of the fabric, usually on each side. In this particular piece of fabric, it's white. On our fabric, which is just like this orange fabric, it's just a frayed bit at the edge. You want to take those selvages, line them up perfectly, and then bring both of the lined up selvages down to the fold and line it up to the fold perfectly. By taking this extra step to ensure that everything's lined up, you can ensure that you won't have wavy strips and you'll have perfectly straight strips every time. Once you've gotten everything lined up, we'll go ahead and cut off about 1/2 inch off the edge. That just straightens everything up. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to go ahead and flip the majority of the fabric onto the right side, and that way I can slide my ruler down on the fabric as I cut. I want these strips to be 2 1/2 inches, so I'll line up the 2-inch line because my ruler has an extra 1/2 inch added. That's what that orange part is. I'll go ahead and make my cut, and I'll repeat this 4 more times. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the orange. I make sure everything's lined up. Then we're going to go ahead and cut about 1/2 inch off the edge, once again to straighten everything up and ensure that you have a straight edge to start with. I'm going to flip my fabric over just like I did before, and I need 5 strips this time that are 4 1/2 inches. Now that we have all of our strips cut, it's time to join them from end to end to make one long continuous strip of each color. In order to do this, you want to go ahead and place your strips right sides together in an L-shaped fashion. You'll go ahead and pin the bottom left corner of the L and the top right corner. After you get your pin in, go ahead and take your ruler, and in the corners that don't have pins, you're going to draw a sewing line from the top left corner to the bottom right corner. Doesn't matter what kind of pin you use, it's not going to be seen. Once you have your line drawn, it's time to take it to the sewing machine. I'm showing you on the black here because it's so much easier to see with the thread. I sewed from that top left corner to the bottom right corner, and as you see, once you press and fold it open, it'll look like one continuous strip of fabric. Before you press this open, you want to go ahead and cut off all that excess. Now I promise that nobody is going to take your quilt apart to see if you did exactly 1/4 of an inch, but for some reason I still measure 1/4 of an inch and I'll cut. I'll go ahead and rotate and take care of the dog ears while I'm here. You don't have to use a rotary cutter for this step. You can just eyeball it and use scissors if you want. Now that you have miles and miles of strips, let me show you how I like to keep these under control and not get tangled. I like to roll them with the wrong side towards the inside so the right side stays facing me and is always on the outside of the roll, kind of like a roll of toilet paper. I do that for both strips, and then all you have to do is put them right sides together, and then you'll sew a 1/4 inch seam right along here. So here's a little trick for measuring your top and bottom of your quilt for your borders. If you have a large quilt, you can go ahead and fold it into 4ths. Mine's not very large. I'm only going to fold it in half. This is going to keep you from having to get the tape measure out, having to spread the quilt on the living room floor and try and get an accurate reading. It is so much easier. So you want to go ahead and lay it down. I'm going to use my cutting mat here because it has measurements. I'm going to put that edge on a line, which just happens to be 30, and the other end is at 10, so I know that's 20 inches. 20 times 2 is 40. I'm going to take my strip set. I want to fold it lengthwise, and I want to place the fold on the 10 and make sure that I have enough to make it all the way over to the 30. Get it all flattened out, similar to cutting the strips in the first place. Get everything lined up here. I do have enough to make it over to the 30, so I'm going to get my ruler. Make sure we're lined up still. Alright, that looks good. I'll place my ruler on the 30 and we'll make the cut. I went ahead and pressed our strip set open. Now we're going to go ahead and lay out how we want to attach our cornerstones. You want to open it up with the right side facing you, and you'll just line this up right side to right side, and you'll sew right along the edge a 1/4 inch seam. You are going to want to line up both sides, right sides together, and it's ready to be taken to the machine. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss the next video where I'll show you how to attach all of this to your quilt.